Up with KREM begins now.
6 o'clock here on your Monday. Thanks so much for joining us here on Up with KREM and streaming on KREM 2 Plus. I'm Tim Pham. Well, this morning you are going to want to grab the umbrella or maybe even a light coat because it is raining pretty much all across the inland Northwest. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick now here with the timing of it all. Hey there, Thomas. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Tim. And more than just a drizzle or a sprinkle, this is a proper rainfall, and it is just going to get everything soaking wet. So honestly, if you are going to be outside for even more than a minute, without an umbrella, you're going to be soaking wet too. It is a widespread rain. When Doppler radar is completely green, you know that the rain is basically everywhere, not just across Spokane County. We even back things out, and it's just quite literally everywhere, not just eastern Washington in this block, but there is even more rain and more moisture that is feeding in from the south and west. So it is going to stay soaking wet all morning long. We're talking about rain through at least the noon hour today, and then more scattered showers into the afternoon. So honestly, it could be raining more often than not for this Monday. Meanwhile, current temperatures still pretty mild for the morning hours, between about 45 and 50 degrees.
Here's a live look at the traffic impact this morning. This is I-90 in Havana right now. You can see traffic flow moving great here to start off a brand new week, although you may encounter obviously some wet roads because of all the rain falling across the inland Northwest. So overall, no major issues to report, but we'll keep a close eye on it and let you know if anything changes. On Up with KREM, we bring you weather and traffic together every 30 minutes. Over the weekend, protesters took to the streets across the inland Northwest and across the country to rally against the current administration. Spokane's protest was just one of more than 1,200 demonstrations, including one across the state line in Coeur d'Alene. Some out protesting say they were there to stand up for minorities and veterans.
We're not going back. Now the public as a whole, left or right, we're all standing together right now, saying enough is enough. Our Constitution is something worth fighting for.
That's Spokane Human Rights Commissioner Anwar Peace, who says this was one of the biggest turnouts for a demonstration in Spokane since the death of George Floyd. Our news partners at the Coeur d'Alene Press spoke to a longtime Coeur d'Alene resident who says Saturday's protest was bigger than any local movement she had seen in recent years. Matthew Patrick Thomas from the Washington State Republican Party shared his take on the protest.
And in politics, there's a lot of theater, a lot of outrage, a lot of you shouldn't be doing this and we're going to stand up. It's like, okay, well, he is doing it and let's see what happens here. But the waste is real. The correction is needed. The debt is real.
When asked about the demonstrations, the White House wrote in a statement the president will always protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. This morning, President Trump is not backing down on sweeping tariffs as international markets plunge and American stocks continue to slide in reaction to the new taxes. Yesterday, the president told reporters that he did not want the stock market to go down, but, quote, sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. The president's aides are working to calm fears, saying more than 50 nations have reached out about negotiating to lift the tariffs. The European Union is now proposing a list of U.S. products to hit with extra tariffs, which could send prices soaring for products like fast fashion, electronics, cheese, and even champagne.
We're going to become a wealthy nation again, wealthy like never before.
The costs of doing business with the United States will drastically increase. And what is more, there seems to be no order in the disorder.
At the White House today, President Trump will discuss tariffs with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They'll also talk about the ongoing war in Gaza, including Iran's role in the crisis.
I think we're hearing from a big segment of the economy. The consumer spending is a big part of GDP, and they're worried.
Washington Senator Maria Cantwell introduced bipartisan legislation which would put limits on a president's ability to impose tariffs without the approval of Congress. The bill is called the Trade Review Act. It would require the president to notify Congress before enacting tariffs, which would expire within 60 days without congressional approval. We are also learning more about cuts coming to the National Endowment for the Humanities. The NEM is a federal agency supporting programs at museums, libraries, schools, universities, and more. Here on Up with KREM, we first told you about the NEM grant for the North Idaho Museum at risk because of the cuts to the organization. And as our Seattle station reports, these cuts could impact hundreds of organizations across Washington, including here in Eastern Washington.
Disbelief, shock, incredible disappointment at what this would mean for the state as a whole.
Julie Ziegler is still trying to make sense of this notice she received late Wednesday night from National Endowment of the Humanities, also known as NEH.
They told us that our funding had been canceled immediately because it no longer fit the agenda of the current administration.
Ziegler is the executive director of Humanities Washington, a nonprofit based in Seattle that puts on about 700 humanities programs statewide, like reading programs, exhibits, community conversations, grants, and other projects. Now, many of them on the chopping block.
So it will mean jobs, it will mean income for folks. And it'll mean a loss of programs in communities. That's the most heartbreaking part.
Ziegler says on average, Humanities Washington receives $1.2 million in grants from NEH annually. That makes up about half of the nonprofit's funding each year.
I find it very sad that promises made by our government are being broken.
Betty Jean Williamson is a longtime volunteer for Humanities Washington programs. She's gutted by the news and believes it's a loss for future generations to grow and learn.
Microcosm of what's happening across the country with these cuts, it's brutal for the arts community.
Ziegler urges people to reach out to Congress members and the White House to keep humanities programming alive, as she braces for the uncertainty that lies ahead.
I just can't imagine a world where we don't prioritize this and support the humanities.
Today, the Yukon women's basketball team is being welcomed home as national champions. This will be Paige Becker's first and last national championship in her collegiate career. Meanwhile, this morning, two men's basketball teams are waking up in Texas, preparing for the national championship in San Antonio. Here's a look at the matchup you can watch only right here on KREM 2. The Florida Gators will take on the Houston Cougars. You may remember the Cougars took down the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the second round of the tournament. Both the Gators and Cougars are 1 seed, so fans are expecting a good game. Don't forget to watch it right here only on KREM 2 tonight at 5:50 to find out who is going home a champion. The Inland Northwest has a strong history when it comes to fathers. Spokane is home and the founding place of Father's Day, if you didn't know that, fun fact. But in more recent years, a few Cougs have made a major impact on fatherly fashion. KREM 2's Brandon T. Jones joining us now live from the newsroom for us. Brandon, you got the chance to speak with a founder of what's now a global brand. And by the way, welcome back, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you and happy to be back. And before I became a father myself, I would see these hats all over my timeline in the airport, at restaurants, all over the place. So it was an honor to be gifted one of these hats by my wife when we had our first son. But when I found out the company Dad Gang has roots right here in the Inland Northwest, I had to reach out to one of the talented minds that made these beautiful caps a reality.
We were just three dads in a text thread with kids all different ages, and we were saying Dad Gang all the time, where after like sharing days with each other, you know, like, oh, today was hard, like the kids wouldn't sleep, I had stuff at work, exhausted, and it's just kind of like, you know, whatever, man, we got you, Dad Gang.
So that right there is 1/3 of a group chat that turned into Dad Gang. So you'll learn more about this 2012 Washington State graduate. And coming up in the next half hour, you'll hear more from that conversation I had with Bart and myself. But for now, live in the newsroom, Brandon T. Jones, KREM 2 News.